dioxide and all sorts of other gases that we're breathing in every single day. What would that look like if you could actually sort of visualize that and sort of see that? So that's what I was sort of...
Look at the response of people and know what information they can give them and cause them to react a certain way. Mm-hmm. And it said is actually, what it actually does is it hijacks the limbic system in the brain. It said, so it's just sort of like an addiction. Like the way that a chemical can do, it hijacks the limbic system.
So we're here at Reynolds Advanced Materials, and we're basically here to learn as much as we can about making medical objects. This was what I made this from, and so we're just going to try to see if we can use the same kind of techniques to make a brain and possibly other medical things.
Sounds like a plan.
What's that? Oh yeah. Just looking around, we're here for the class. Rick and Mike. Look at this.
So we got in this training room, and it was just absolutely filled with all different kinds of molds, casting, and all different kinds of equipment and materials. It was a crazy amount of stuff that was in there. I mean, just about every kind of thing you can think of. It was really inspiring to see all the things that they had made, samples that they made in the training room. I was trying to see if the skull had sort of a bottom to it, but it didn't. It was just a flat bottom, so I put it back. But they gave us refreshments throughout the day, and I was just amazed at all the things that was there in the training room. And we had a good time just sort of looking around and seeing everything that was there.
I was like, okay, is that a real cinder block? Or was that like, you know, yeah, look at that.
Wow.
That's really cool.
Oh, dude. Yeah, I'll be able to retire early. Yeah.
The first part of the training was a slide presentation, but then we got into seeing the demos of the mold making, pouring, and different kinds of techniques used in pouring. Two-part molds. They had prepared some examples of brush-on techniques in advance so that we would be able to see the process without having to wait for it to all the different versions to cure. The technicians were very knowledgeable of everything, and it was very fascinating to see all the different layers from detailed to the final molds. Here they are demonstrating using freeform air, a kind of thick molding to make the shell that will eventually go over top of the final mold that you might use to support before you put in the mold material. And here's a form of shell using something called plastic paste from Smooth On, and basically it's mixed up and poured over just like peanut butter and then formed around. They use different resins and epoxies, different casting powders and metal powders. It was amazing to see all the different uses. Here they're using two different mixes together right on top of each other to make sort of a marbled effect. It was really cool to see how all that turned out. A lot of preparation in advance though. It's really satisfying to see all the different marbled results. They turned out really well. All different kinds of shapes and how the material affected it. It was amazing. And they would take some types of wax, in this case shoe polish, to shine up and weather a metal particle mold. It turned out really well. And you can use the same kind of wax, in this case shoe polish, to take a wood grain model and brush it on and have an effect, give it an amazing wood grain effect. It's really cool. And casting and foam rubber was another way to do things.
Yeah, but you can move it a little bit, like I said. So right now I'm just kind of brushing it to make sure it's coating all of the surface, but then I'm going to leave it alone once I've let it.
Seems really close to the edge.
Is that better?
Yeah.
As he steps out of the room.
That stuff smells pretty bad.
So it'll keep reacting. So as it does this, it's going to seek its own path, and it's going to do its own thing, and it's going to keep expanding. Once it expands to a certain point and starts setting, it's actually going to start mushrooming and shooting straight up. So if you want to cast it into a mold, you have to think about things that are called back pressure. So you can, if it's a big open face mold, maybe you have a big plate that's got several holes drilled into it, so there's some place for the foam to go. But back pressure is essentially when the material starts rising, it hits the plate, and then it has nowhere to go, so it forces it back down. So when it gets forced back down into the mold, it pushes into the surface, creating a better casting. But you have to make sure that you've got enough vents, and big enough vents, that it's got somewhere to go, because otherwise it can explode the mold.
So if you were pouring it into something that was like a skull or something like that, you would want to have at least a couple little vents through it, and you would just come back later and
Yeah, you can cut those out. Yeah.
All these technicians were very knowledgeable in their craft, and here they're pouring it in a resin for making a foam rubber gun here. It was casted not from a real gun. But here we are working with alginate, and it's basically using this kind of hard plastic to pour into and to be able to make a mold of our thumbs or fingers or whatever we put in there. Here's Mike's pulling out his thumb.
Mikey's thumb. Mikey's thumb. Thank you, Rick.
Okay. So I just made this finger, and what I'm going to do is basically pull out this finger that basically we just cast in AltiCast.
So I can make masks.
There we go. A nice pliable version of my finger. All right, Mike.
Yes, sir.
So how was it?
It was great. I think it was the best seminar I've done all year.
Oh man, I learned so much.
Yeah, I'm still sitting here reading. Actually had a lot of ideas while sitting in there. Ideas that spun off of ideas was interesting.
All the things we could possibly make, I mean, just it's boundless the amount of things that we can make and do, and who knows, sell.
Yeah,
amazing seminar.
those guys were. Everybody there too was. Can't say enough nice things about Reynolds Advanced Materials.
And
yeah,
they gave us one of these kits.
Yeah. Oh, huge! What's in that thing?
I don't even know how much was this thing.
Oh,
It was like $25 or something like that. But gives us everything we need to make a couple casts. So really worth it. $75 we paid for this seminar. Totally worth it.
where's my camera at? Okay, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this was great. Thank you, Rick.
Yeah.
All right, good job. All right, stay tuned.